This is not a chapter but pain for many students, but I am here to make it easier. Myself Biswajit, your zoology mentor. You are with PW NEET English. Here we learn with fun. Which came earlier? Was it egg or chicken? How this universe was created? What is the story of the ancient earth? And the most unique phenomena, the existence of life, how it stepped in from some non-living matter. Yes, in this chapter, that is evolution, from class 12, we will learn and we will search scientific explanation of all those questions. And after completion, do not forget to practice some really important questions, and the questions you are going to get in our PW app. The link is just given into our description box, right? And we are with Physics Wala, where every day we are learning and we are in the process of evolution. So let's run with the process and be the master of this topic. So let's start. So if you want to know that, are we really descendants of monkeys, or it's just a myth, or there is some real scientific proof or facts against that? So for that, we have to explore the chapter of evolution, and the topics we are going to cover today, that is origin of life in this earth, and in a background that how this universe was created, how the solar system was created, and obviously the birth of earth and formation of first life inside a hot boiling ocean, right? We'll learn about evolution of life forms, the diversification of flora and fauna, and with the help of some evidences, we'll talk about biological evolution. Basically, we need to learn the theories of some renowned scientists, some pioneers like Charles Darwin, Thomas Malthus, Herbert Spencer, Dobzhansky, Lamarck. Okay, and we'll try to explore the mechanism of evolution, Hardy-Weinberg principle. Okay, Hardy and Weinberg, they were basically mathematicians. With the help of their algebraic expression, basically it's a binomial expression of related to population genetics, which will help us to explore certain angles of evolution. And we'll talk about brief account of evolution from a single cell, how life started the journey and flourished to form millions of species of flora and fauna as well as microbes. And we will be concluding the chapter with the topic of evolution of man. Okay, so if someone is asking you, bro, tell me what is evolution, with the help of this beautiful poem, you can answer. So what this poem is telling us, evolution, it's a mystery, a bit of history, because it's history of the journey of life, story of life with chemistry. We cannot ignore chemistry. We have to learn the formation of organic compounds from inorganic ones, formation of compounds from elements. We have to learn the environmental condition of ancient earth. So it's all about learning some real chemistry here. Evolution is slow but steady when you talk about Darwin and Hardy. Sometime it will jump like Krish when it comes Hugo de Vries. Basically here I am talking about the theory of mutation related to evolution, and jump like Krish means saltation theory of mutation or jumping. Megalodon to shark, don't forget Lamarck. Okay, Megalodon, a prehistoric animal, and shark, a modern day fish. The tales of generation. Let's study evolution. Okay, so basically this is a story of origin of life and evolution of life forms or biodiversity on planet Earth. So we need to explore history, how non-living matter combined and interacted with each other to form first life form, a single cell, and archaea, archaebacteria, and from that archaea how life forms were flourished to form the diversity, right? A diversity of flora, fauna, as well as microbes. The context of evolution of earth and against the background of evolution of the universe itself. So parallelly we have to learn the existence or the creation of this universe. So just try to imagine a huge dark screen, and somewhere inside that screen there is a blue dot, that is our beloved planet Earth. Now zoom inside that, and if you will peep inside the Earth, then you will find with your scientific view how evolution was taking place. That's because we were not present at that time when life started its journey, right? So with scientific approach, like solving a puzzle, we have to proceed towards to get some scientific answers, right? Okay. Now before learning some theories and to resume our search of evolution or the history of diversity, creation of this biodiversity, let's learn some facts or learn some information related to that. So if someone asks you what is unit of evolution, so you have to answer that is population. Okay. So it's basically a group of individuals of a same species with similar characteristics feature. We call them members of a population, right? So it's basically few of the members of this particular population will give rise to a new species in future eventually. So that's why we need to learn about population. That is a unit of evolution. What is driving force of evolution? That is natural selection. Ultimately these certain individuals will be selected by nature, because nature is the almighty, nature is omnipotent, right? Nature will select the strongest one, the fittest one. That's why unit of natural selection will be individuals. And if we are asking what is raw material for evolution, then the answer is variation. Okay, is the modified ones, is the variant ones among these individuals of the members of population. Nature had chosen them as the fittest one. Now what about this fitness? Is it the physical fitness or is it the reproductive fitness? In course of this lecture, obviously we will try to answer this question. Someone asks you what is source of variation? It will be mutation, the sudden change in genetic makeup of an organism. That is called mutation, and this mutation is the source or will create the base of evolution, as because if there is change in genotype of a particular organism, there will be change in phenotype, and from that particular point of time there will be creation of branches, and those branches will give rise to new organism or new species in future. Okay, so let's explore some theories related to evolution. We'll talk about theory of spontaneous generation. Okay, basically this is a mythology based theory, a religious theory given by suggested by Father Sorge. Okay, there are three connotations of this theory. So what this theory is saying us? The theory is saying us that all living organisms are created as such in the beginning. He said that the diversity of earth was created within 6 days, right? And very seventh day, the Almighty or the God was taking rest. That's why there are 7 days in a week from Monday to Sunday. The diversity was always the same. Okay, all the species of flora or plants or animals or microbes were existing from the beginning only. Earth is, the irony of this theory is, it said that Earth is about 4,000 years old. Okay. Now, obviously, in scientific point of view, you can discuss this theory. Next theory is theory of panspermia or panspermia theory. Now, what this theory is saying? The theory says that there are some celestial or cosmic bodies. Those cosmic entities were dispersed throughout the planets, and Earth was one of them. And these cosmic entities were basically carrying some spores. Upon germination of those spores, life came into existence. Okay, so this theory was supported by some early Greek philosophers or early Greek thinkers. Next theory, the theory of spontaneous generation. The theory of spontaneous generation. Spontaneous means random formation of life forms from decaying and rotting matters like straw or mud. Yes. See, ancient people or the laymen, they used to observe that rats are coming out of decaying straw bundle. They used to observe that from a piece of meat, flies are coming out when it started decaying and maggots are thriving inside it. So, they used to think that it is the decaying process, must be there some chemical reactions are running inside that is responsible for the creation of life. They used to observe that the turtles or crocodiles in the river bank, they are coming out of mud burrows. So, they were not really keen about to learn the detailed process of their reproduction. So, they used to think that is the reaction of sunlight, river bank mud and the river water are responsible for creation of crocodiles or turtles like animals. Okay. So, they tried to establish their theory of spontaneous generation, but it was discarded by the theory of biogenesis, which was given by the great scientist come the pioneer of microbiology, Louis Pasteur, right. So, he dismissed the theory of spontaneous generation, and what he was trying to say that life comes from pre-existing life. Life comes from pre-existing life. Now, according to Louis Pasteur, how he discarded the theory of spontaneous generation. He did an experiment with a swan neck flask. He prepared broth, a liquid nutritive media inside that swan neck flask, and he kept the mouth of this flask open. Now, what will happen? Eventually, the foul air surrounding that will enter into that flask, and you know that air particles, they are containing spores of microbes, spores of bacteria and fungus. So, eventually, the spore, when they will get in touch with this nutritive media, they will germinate, they will form their population, and eventually the broth media will get spoiled. Okay. Okay. The very next day, he did the same experiment with certain modification. Okay. Now, he blocked or sealed the mouth of this swan neck flask with cotton, and he kept a candle light in front of this. Now they were acting as this cotton and this candle, the flame of the candle, they were acting as a filter, okay, or sterilizer. So whenever the foul air will try to enter inside this flask, they will get filtered or the germs will be killed here only, and now this broth is sterilized, or the broth is safe now, that won't be getting spoiled, right? So that's how Louis Pasteur said already spores of microbes are present into the air, and somehow when they get contact with nutrition media, they will germinate, and you will think that life formed from decaying material, because you cannot see them, you cannot observe them. But what was the drawback or constraint of the theory of biogenesis given by Louis Pasteur and his colleagues like Spallanzani and Reddy? They were unable to explain how the first life came into existence, and for that we have to learn modern theory of evolution or chemical theory of evolution, which was given by two scientists, Oparin and Haldane. So let's explore the theory. So if you want to learn the process of life formation or biopoiesis, we have divided the sequence of phenomena into three parts. First part, we will learn how this universe and our galaxy and our own solar system was created. The theory was explained by Lemaitre, and the theory is called Big Bang theory. Okay. Now, according to Big Bang theory, when there was nothing in this empty space, there was a singular, enormously unimaginable explosion, that is called a bang, and that created our universe. Near about 13.8 billion years ago. BYA means billion years ago. Okay. Now gradually the mass and the energy, they started expanding, they got dispersed, the space and the time was created, as well as our universe. Now gradually the temperature was coming down, the temperature was cooling down, and there was formation of gases like hydrogen and helium in the beginning. So due to gravitational pull, they came closer, there was condensation of this gas, and that was the time formation of galaxies were there. And one of such galaxy was our own Milky Way galaxy, and inside that there was formation of our solar system, a middle-sized star, our sun, and there was formation of planets. And luckily we are inside the most amazing planet, that's our Mother Earth. Okay, so that was the story behind the formation of Earth. See, this chapter, the chapter you have to study in the format of story. Now let's peep inside that ancient Earth. So formation of Earth was near about 4.5 billion years ago. There was no atmosphere. The Earth was merely a molten ball of magma, and that molten mass releases some gases like water vapor, methane, carbon dioxide, ammonia, carbon dioxide and methane. Okay, that molten mass releases gases like water vapor, ammonia, carbon dioxide and methane. They were accumulating and they were tending to form the layer, airy or gaseous layer outside the Earth. Gradually there will be formation of atmosphere, and there was random bombardment of ultraviolet rays and other cosmic rays. Now this ultraviolet ray, what it will do? It will split water molecules or water vapor molecules into hydrogen and oxygen. Oxygen is comparatively heavier but hydrogen is because it's a lighter gas, it will escape upward, right? Now this oxygen will not prevail as a gaseous form, right, or molecular form. The oxygen will react with ammonia, the oxygen will react with methane to form some other compounds like carbon dioxide, water and NO. And few of the oxygen molecules, they will react with oxygen atom to form ozone. And this ozone will create a canopy, a protective canopy outside the earth. These are the gases, and as soon as there was formation of ozone, that will create a canopy, a protective covering outside the earth into the atmosphere, and eventually that will block the cosmic rays and ultraviolet rays, because ultraviolet rays, they are really harmful for life form. Now the like earth surface is a safe place where life can be originated, right? Okay, in the meantime the temperature was cooling down, and there was rainfall. It was heavily raining, and the crevices or the depression present on the earth's surface will get filled with that water or the rainfall, and ultimately that will create an ancient ocean like structure which we call primordial soup or hot soup. Now inside that ocean, gradually there will be formation of simple organic compounds. From simple organic compounds there will be formation of complex organic compounds, and the whole process we named it as chemical evolution. Now what after that? Now those complex organic compounds will act as biomolecules. Basically they are large or giant molecules of RNA, sugar, nitrogen base. They will react with each other, they will combine, and they will form the first sign of life near about 4 billion years ago. Okay, so Earth was formed 4.5 billion years ago. Just after 500 millions or 0.5 billion year after the formation of Earth, we can observe a sign of first life in terms of biomolecules like RNA, proteins, sugars and nitrogenous base. And upon their interaction, there will be formation of first non-cellular life, and formation of non-cellular life will be there on was there 3 billion years ago. Formation of first non-cellular life was 3 billion years ago in the form of protocell, right? We also call those protocells as eubionts. Okay, they were self-replicating metabolic capsules, and the most unique phenomena happened 2 billion years ago, the formation of first cell in the form of anaerobic chemoheterotrophs. They were anaerobic in nature. Basically they were ancient bacteria or archaea or archaeobacteria. So first cell on this earth which was formed inside this primordial soup or ocean was anaerobic chemoheterotrophic archaea. They used to consume the chemicals which were present in that ocean, in that soup, and when the chemicals were exhausted, there was formation of the next form of life, that is chemoautotropic organisms, right? And from those chemoautotropic organisms, there was formation of photoautotrophs, Okay. Now the photoautotrophs, there was two kinds of photoautotrophs. Few photoautotrophs, they were anoxygenic, as excreta they used to release sulfur, and few photoautotrophs, they harvested sunlight to produce energy, and they used to produce oxygen as excreta, and we call them oxygenic photoautotrophs. Basically they are cyanobacterias. And this whole process, formation of first cell and gradually the diversification and formation of bacteria from chemoautotrophs to photoautotrophs, this whole process we call it biological evolution. First oxygenic photoautotrophs inside that ocean started forming the oxygen as their excreta, and oxygen they diffused out from the water and started diffusing into the air or the atmosphere, and from then the atmosphere gradually started becoming oxidizing from reducing one. Okay. Now let's brief the process of protobiogenesis. This is also called the theory of chemical evolution or protobiogenesis, and for this theory we need to talk about these two scientists, Sir Oparin and Halden. So according to them, what we have just learned, in the beginning there was formation of inorganic constituent, and from the inorganic constituent gradually organic molecules came into existence, okay, under high temperature, volcanic storms and reducing atmosphere. So, the formation of organic molecules from inorganic molecules, we call it chemical evolution, and gradually the organic molecule will give rise life form, and that process is called biological evolution. Okay. And as per the NCERT, we cannot forget a very important question can be asked from this line. The first self-replicating metabolic capsules, we call them proto cells. So there are two theories. Few scientists said that they are protobionts or quasarvates, and few scientists say that they are eubionts or macrosphere. Now which between them, protobionts or eubionts, these are our candidate which can self-replicate. They are probably eubionts or macrophages. They used to show metabolism. They had RNA inside them. They were capsule-like structure. They had capsule-like structure, and they used to replicate by the process of binary fission. Okay. Now these protobionts, we discarded this theory because the protobionts, they were metabolic capsules, but they were unable to do reproduction or self-replication or binary fission. Okay, so let's move forward. Now, everything whatever Oparin and Halden said is basically theory. Now, we need some real practical proof, right? Now, to prove their theory, we got two more scientists here, Urey and Miller's experiment given. Only Miller's name of Miller is given in NCERT. So we need to study about Urey and Miller's experiment. So inside their lab, they created a condition which was quite similar to the condition of the ancient earth, right? So what was the condition of the ancient earth? In the atmosphere, in the air, there was methane, hydrogen and ammonia gas. So the atmosphere, it was reducing. There was random bombardment of ultraviolet rays, volcanic storms. It was heavily raining that time, and the temperature was very high nearby 800 degree Celsius. So they created similar kind of condition inside their lab. And what are the components, what are the materials they needed to create such condition? They used a closed flask. This is the closed flask. They use the gases like methane, hydrogen and ammonia as the ratio of 2:2:1. Obviously, they used boiling water to get the water vapor, and they were boiling the water at a temperature of 800 degrees Celsius temperature. And to speed up the mechanism of reaction between all these components, he used high voltage of electric spark or electric discharge nearby 17,000 volts. Okay, so this is the facility where they try to like do mimicry of the ancient earth, and successfully after their experiment they were able to produce some amino acids, that is glycine, alanine and aspartic acid. So obviously this shows that how organic molecules, amino acids are organic molecules, biomolecules. Organic molecules came into existence from inorganic molecules, and later on many other scientists they they've tried to do the same experiment in more advanced way, and they were successfully able to produce sugars, nitrogenous base and all. So that is the success of the Miller's or Urey Miller's closed flask experiment, and that supported the theory of chemical evolution by Oparin and Halden. Right. Now let's solve a question related to that. The question is saying that the primitive atmosphere, the assertion, the primitive atmosphere was of reducing type, obviously, because there was too much of hydrogen gas into this environment. Hydrogen atoms combined with all oxygen atoms and no free oxygen was left. Yes, the ancient period. Why the primitive atmosphere was reducing type? Because there was dominancy of hydrogen and there was no oxygen present in the form of O2, right? So you will be finding oxygen, they are either reacting with hydrogen to form water, either reacting with methane or reacting with ammonia. So both the assertion and reason, they are basically correct. And reason is the correct explanation of assertion here. Okay, another assertion and reason. What this assertion is saying? Assertion is saying that the first molecules formed for replicating cells were most probably RNA. Yes, there's a true fact. So first genetic material, first self-replicating capsules, they had RNA inside them. DNA appeared later on because RNA is quite unstable, right? And there are many reasons you are going to learn into genetics. One of the reason is the presence of uracil, the presence of a ribose sugar, right? The RNA is quite unstable, and RNA, you know, there is an enzyme called, there's a group of enzyme called ribozyme. They're basically RNA. The types, the certain a special type of RNA. So RNA has two functions. They can act as genetic material, they can act as biocatalyst. So the initial organism, they used to use RNA. So assertion is a true statement. The reason is saying this was proved by origin of ribozyme RNA with enzymatic activity. This is also true, and obviously we can say that both assertion and reason are true, and reason is the correct explanation of assertion. Why the primitive cells or primitive capsules used to use RNA as self-replicating molecule because the RNA had two like criteria, that is apart from acting as genetic material, it used to act as enzyme, right? Okay, so let's jump to the next topic, that is the evolution of life form. Here we'll learn about the observations of the great scientist Charles Darwin. Yes. So he was a scientist of 18th century, and it was Charles Darwin. His study and observation challenged those theories of spontaneous generation or the theories of special creation, basically, that the life was not created as such, there was no diversity from the beginning. It is the process of evolution, the formation of new organism from the pre-existing one by a gradual process. We call it evolution according to Darwin. Okay, so what Charles Darwin said and how he concluded his observation, basically he went for a sea voyage, okay, with a ship called HMS Beagle, Her Majesty's ship. It was prepared by England. The Queen of England basically gifted him this ship to travel or to explore the world for his biological activities and philosophical activities and for the research. Okay, so he's better known about like the research or the study on Galapagos Island, the finches, right? But basically with the HMS Beagle ship, he traveled many islands and many part of the world, and he observed the beautiful diversity, and he concluded that existing living forms share similarities to varying degrees, not only among themselves but also with life forms that existed millions of years ago. So what he tried to say that? He tried to say that if there is organism A, organism B, organism C, organism D, we have kept them because they have dissimilarities. But if you closely observe or study them, you will be finding similarities. You will be finding similarities. You will be finding similarities among them. Okay. Suppose A and B, you will be finding they have 20% similarities. With A and C, you will find 10% similarity. With A and D, you will find 40% similarity. So you can conclude that A is closer to D. A is more closer to D than B or than C, because A and D, both of them are sharing 40% of similarities, though there are 60% of dissimilarities prevailing in between them. So that defines their similar ancestry. That is denoting towards their similar ancestry. So that is showing that A and D, they are sharing common ancestry. And if you observe them in more close manner, you will find that all of them are showing common ancestry. Maybe the presence is not there for this ancestor that is actually fossilized. Okay, so I think it's clear. Darwin wanted to tell us about phylogeny. What is phylogeny? We haven't observed the evolution, right? But if this is this is an ancient organism, suppose this had given rise to different organisms. From this organism, there was formation of another organism. From this organism, there was formation of another organism, and again there was formation of two different organisms. So this particular tree formation, there will be a road map formation, that which are the organisms which came earlier and which are the organisms which came later on in course of evolution. So that is called phylogenetic tree, and phylogeny that denotes towards the common ancestry of flora and fauna. Okay. So according to the Darwinism, there has been gradual evolution of life forms. So Darwin used to believe that gradually life forms used to evolve by accumulating minor variations among their population. Right. Okay. Now we'll talk about the theory of Darwin given by Darwin, or Darwinism. Now what Darwinism explains? Darwinism explains that high rate of reproduction. You will observe that each and every organism in this world, they have tendency to produce at their maximal level, because the process of reproduction, this provides the continuity of that particular species in this earth. So everyone wants dominancy. Okay, and while they are performing reproductions, basically the sexual reproduction due to the recombination, okay, during the time of sexual reproduction, recombination in between the chromosomes, okay, while the gametes are performing meiotic divisions, basically there will be formation of variation among a particular population, and the variants can also be called descents with modification. And this is the modified ones who has undergone this variation. Okay, they will give rise to new species eventually, that we call descents with modification. Okay, now I am explaining it again. Suppose there is a species called A. It has two different varieties, A1 and A2, and suddenly there was environmental change, and due to sudden change of the environment, the A2 variety, they died, and the variety which is written as A1 had managed to survive, and in future time they will give rise another species called B. So this A1, they are basically the variants or the modified ones, or the descents with modification. Eventually they can promote the process of evolution, right? Okay, next, what? Resource is limited. Yes, though organisms are reproducing and making their own copies, but the land or the water, the volume of earth is limited, resources are limited. So what they will do, they will go for competition. Competition among them, that is called intra-specific competition. Competition with other species, it is called interspecific. competition and also competition with nature, and also competition with nature, and eventually maximum of their individuals or the progeny will die with time. So this struggle is called the struggle for existence. Everyone is competing with each other. Everyone is competing with each other. Even you are also competing with your fellow mate who is preparing for NEET 2026. Right? So everyone, we are competing, we are struggling for survival every day, every second, every minute. And ultimately, there will be survival of the fittest, because the nature will choose some selected ones or the fittest ones. That is called natural selection. Now basically the term survival of fittest, that was given by Herbert Spencer, and later on Darwin adopted this theory. Even Herbert Spencer, he coined the term evolution. Even Herbert Spencer, he coined the term evolution as well as survival of the fittest. The sentence survival of the fittest. Okay. Now, who are actually the fittest one? Are they the animals or the organisms with physical fitness? Okay. If this is the story of physical fitness, then like today's world, dinosaurs, the giant ones, T-Rex kind of dinosaurs used to rule over the earth, but it's not them, it's us. So it's not about physical fitness, it's about reproductive fitness. So Darwin always told about reproductive fitness. Darwin never promoted physical fitness. So nature will select those who are not physically fit, rather those who are fit in reproductive terms. Okay, so that's called natural selection. Okay, now the same, like when Darwin was researching on different species, different flora and fauna, another scientist, Alfred Wallace, this particular scientist, he was doing his research into an island called Malay Archipelago. This is an island situated into Indonesia. And after conduction of his study, the conclusion he had given was somehow similar to the observation of Darwin's. Okay. So what Alfred Wallace Sir said, all the existing life forms share similarities and share common ancestor. That is, again, he is denoting towards the phylogenetic tree, the roadmap how organisms are evolved one after another. However, these ancestors were present in different period of history on earth. Like we say that we are descendants of monkeys, right? But not monkeys actually, we and chimpanzees, basically human being and chimpanzees, we are kind of brothers or sisters. We both had a similar kind of parent, means our ancestors were same, and there was two varieties. One variety was like human, one variety was like chimpanzees, and from the human like variety, in course of time they had given rise human being, and the chimpanzee like ancestor with course of time given rise the modern days chimps or modern days chimpanzees, right? So that was all about the theory of Darwin or the observation of Alfred Wallace. Both of them denoted what? Both of them denoted the phylogenetic tree. Both of them denoted the phylogenetic tree and the creation of biodiversity. Okay. Now we will talk about evidences of evolution. Okay. So everything is theoretical, right? We haven't observed evolution in front of our eyes. So scientifically we have to give some proof or evidences. Until unless we are not providing some real proof or evidence, people are not gonna believe on us, right? Okay, so first evidence is paleontological evidence. Paleontology means study of ancient things. Study of ancient thing. We have to excavate. We have to dig down into the rocks, into the muds. We'll search for fossils. So basically, paleontological evidence means upon studying the fossils of the rocks, we will try to find out the biogeological time scale, and then we will conclude our study, and which will be supporting the process of evolution. Okay, so this is about studying fossils. Now what do you mean by fossils? Fossils means remains of hard parts of plants or animals into rocks. So basically, fossils are rockified parts of plants and animals. And what is saying that different sediments of rocks contains different life forms. Different sediments, when you have started excavating the earth crust, you will find that the species, the fossilized species of plants and animals and their impressions are present in layer by layer, layer wise manner. So each layer representing one particular biogeological period or geobiological period, one layer of rock. Okay, so the upper layers representing the new ages, the new eras, and the lower layers, so the layers which are present into the deep zone of earth crust, they are representing the ancient ones, right? So that's why it's written different sediments of rocks, basically determining different life forms. Okay, certain life forms are restricted to certain geological time span. Okay, so by studying those rocks, we got to know about trilobite, we got to know about dinosaurs. Now let's talk about geological time span or geological time scale. What do you mean by geological time span? Geological time means the geological years. A bigger unit is eon. Now eon is divided into multiple stages called eras. One era is again subdivided into periods. Each period is subdivided into epochs, and inside every epoch there are many ages. So basically in NCERT they have described about eras and periods, like there are three eras: Paleozoic era, then Mesozoic era, and the recent one, this is Cenozoic era. Right, you can remember by this trick. So there are three major eras we are going to study. The ancient one, Paleozoic; the middle one, Mesozoic; the recent one, Cenozoic. So by the name of some footballers, Pele, famous, the legend of Brazil, right? Pele, old one. Then Maradona of Argentina, the Argentinian, the legend of Argentina. Then now this time, this is the decade of Cristiano Ronaldo. So Pele, Maradona, Cristiano. Paleozoic, ancient era; middle era, Mesozoic, Maradona; and the recent era, Cenozoic era, or the era of Cristiano Ronaldo. This just was a trick to remember. Okay, now we were talking about some geological time scale sediments of rocks, right? So you started excavating.
from here. So this is a layer of rock. This is another layer of rock. This is another layer of rock. This is another layer of rock. So layer by layer, when you will go deeper, basically you are unboxing, the ancient time period, ancient time stamps. So this is the uppermost layer. So the animals or the fossils of the animals or plants, whatever you will be getting here, they are the recent ones. This is the lower, the deepest layer. Whatever animal or plants remaining or fossils you are getting, they are the ancient one or older one. Okay, so that's how with like by studying fossil we determine the ages of fossil, that is called the study of geological time scale. Now a question is given in NCERT, how the ages of fossils are calculated. Now how you can calculate it, the rocks or the fossils which are present into the second layer, how old are they? So we can go for dating techniques. Now what do you mean by dating techniques? With the help of radiocarbon or radioactive or other radioactive elements, we can do comparative study of different fossils, and we get to know what is the actual age of fossils. So how the ages of fossils are calculated? By doing their relative dating techniques or actual dating techniques. One of the famous technique is radiocarbon dating. So what happens in radiocarbon dating? In radiocarbon dating, basically we compare the presence of carbon in a particular fossils. The carbons are present into two different forms, C12 and C14. Now the C14, this is a radioactive carbon, and C12, this is the normal carbon, right? You have to compare the ratio between normal carbon and radioactive carbon, and we already know the half-life of radioactive carbon, and by the presence of radioactive carbon and what amount it has already radiated in some past years, you can easily calculate the age of fossils. Okay. Now the next support, that is embryological support, and that was demonstrated by Ernst Haeckel, and according to he had given the theory called theory of biogenetic law. The theory given by him is called the law, basically not theory, law, biogenetic law. Okay. The biogenetic law is also called as ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. The most famous quote from biogenetic law, ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. Now what is the meaning of that? The meaning of ontogeny recapitulates means the embryo of organisms or animals, they try to repeat or the mirror the characteristics feature of their ancestors. Again I am repeating, the embryos of animals, they try to mirror or repeat the characteristics feature which were present into their ancestors. So that is the meaning of ontogeny recapitulates or ontogeny repeats phylogeny. So I am demonstrating with the example. So suppose you have taken embryological stages of different animals. Embryo of a shark, embryo of human, and also embryo of crocodile. Now, though the matured one or adult one will look totally different from each other, but their embryological stage resembles with each other. So that is the explanation of this particular theory. Basically, the shark, human and crocodile all are what? All are vertebrates. So that's why they have common ancestor from which they were evolved, right? Okay. So common embryonic stage among vertebrates represent common ancestry, like vestigial gill slits in human being and other vertebrates present into the embryological developmental phase, but when matured only you can observe the functional gill slits into fishes, right? Okay. But this theory was challenged by Carl Ernst von Wehr, and he disproved or disapproved the theory or biogenetic law. So basically what von Wehr tried to explain that embryos shows more generalized characteristics features, and upon their maturation they will develop special feature. In embryological, but according to von Wehr, embryo they show general feature. When they are matured, they will develop special feature. Okay, so he used to justify that embryos have similar kind of structure, that's fine, but if this is indication of similar ancestry, then why these characteristics which are not getting delivered or not getting passed into the matured one or adult one? So by like dictating this kind of lines and arguing, he disapproved the theory given by Ernst Haeckel. So basically, if we recap these topics, the argue of Ernst Haeckel and von Wehr, Ernst Haeckel tried to argue that as because the embryonic stages of different animals, they look quite similar because they share common ancestry. Okay, but von Wehr says that more generalized feature will appear in the beginning, that is inside the embryo, and more special characteristics will appear into the matured or adult beings. So that's why we cannot say that the embryonic similarity depicts common ancestry. So the next evidence for evolution, we have to study comparative anatomy and morphology of different organs. So basically here I am talking about homologous organs and analogous organs and how they are different and how they are helping us to track the pathway of evolution, right? Okay, so let's start with homologous organs. So what do you mean by homology? Homology means similar origin and structure, and analogy means similar function. Okay, so if we compare different like organs, the same organ into different group of animals, and if their origin is similar and structure is similar, but they differ in function, then they will be called as homologous organs, right? Okay, now what does these homologous organs defines? They defines common ancestry, and divergent evolution. They defines common ancestry and divergent evolution. Now, what do you mean by divergent evolution? If this is a place, a species A, the ancestral species A used to live into this land zone. Okay. Now, due to some environmental or physical need, they got distributed, they got diversified into different parts. Okay, and later on they had given rise into different species or varieties called C, D, E, F. So this kind of evolution can be called as divergent evolution. So as because C, D, E, F, they had common ancestor, their organs will show structural similarity and similarity of origin, but their function will be different as because they are dwelling into different geographical zones, right? Okay, so with some examples, let explain the divergent evolution or the homology of organs. If you observe forelimb of man, cheetah, whale and bat, if you observe forelimb of these man, cheetah, whale and bat, what they belong to the same group, they all are mammals. Okay, so obviously the ancestral mammals, the ancestor of all these animals are similar. So when you are studying the forelimb, the bones will be kind of similar, like both of them have humerus, like us we have humerus. Here we got radius and ulna. Here we have carpals. Here we have metacarpals. And the digits called phalanges. So if you observe forelimb of human and other animals, you will get humerus, you will get radius ulna, you will get carpals, you will get metacarpal and you will get phalanges. Right? Okay. The similar thing, if you want to observe into plants, into plant kingdom, the homology, the tendrils of bougainvillea and the thorns of bougainvillea and tendrils of cucurbita. The thorns of bougainvillea and the tendril of cucurbita, basically they are modified auxiliary buds, because they are modified parts of the stem, right? Similarly, if you observe heart of different vertebrates, you will find they have kind of similar structures, right? Okay, now let's talk about analogy. Analogy, similar structure but different origin and similar function. Analogy means similar function but different origin and structure. So what this is depicting? Their common habitat. By course of time they used to live, they used to share a common habitat, and there is example of convergent evolution. Now what do you mean by convergent evolution? Suppose this is a land zone, this is another land zone. here species A used to present or used to live, and another species B used to live. But due to some natural calamity or some geological factor, they were driven to this valley. They were driven to this valley. So when both A and B try to coexist with this similar habitat, they developed organs with similar functions, but their origin is dissimilar, and as because they are from different origin, their structure of organs will also be dissimilar. So analogy means similar function, they are performing similar work, but the organs with the help of their performing, like if we talk about the wing of moth or insects and wing of birds. Okay, wing of birds made up of feather and bones, but wing of insects or moths, basically they are membranous structure. They are quite dissimilar in structure and origin, but performing the similar action. Okay. Again, examples are given: wings of butterfly and birds, eyes of octopus and mammals. They are distinct, they are not close relatives even. They are very much distinct. Octopus, they are invertebrates. They belong to the group Mollusca, the phylum Mollusca, and Mammalia, they belong to the phylum Chordata. So they are quite distinct from each other, but somehow the development of eye and the function, not the development, the function of eye quite similar in between them. Flippers of penguins and flippers of dolphins. Penguins, they are birds, dolphins, they are mammals. One is aquatic bird, another is aquatic mammal. Okay, so basically nature drove them or throw them towards the aquatic zone, oceans basically, and that's why in order to swim they had developed structure like flippers or paddles, but their structures are quite different from each other. Okay, now if we talk about plant, sweet potato and potato. Sweet potato and potato, one is root tuber sweet potato and another is stem tuber. Both are tuber. Why both are tuber? Because they are acting as storage of starch, that is the similar function. But sweet potato is basically modified root, potato modified stem. Okay, so with an example of a story, I'm making it even more easier. Okay, homology, similar origin and structure and different function. Suppose you and Chintu and Pintu, they both are friends, they are preparing for NEET 2026. Okay, so that's why they are studying in same institute, they are reading the same books, so that's why they have similar origin. So we can say that they are coming from the same class, so they have similar origin, their preparation is same, because we can say that the structure is also similar, they have similar kind of books. Okay, and knowledge also. But somehow Chintu were able to crack NEET and Pintu, he wasn't able to crack, he failed into NEET exam. So from here their pathway is diversified. Chintu will become a doctor, and suppose his friend Pintu in near future he will become something else, he will become IAS, right? So as because they are performing different function, but their origin somehow similar, so this is example of homology. Okay, but analogy, Again, analogy. So, my friend Chintu and Montu. Chintu and Montu. They are two different guys. Chintu, a student of he's a NEET aspirant, and Montu is basically a JEE aspirant. So they study different books, right? So they have different structures. They study in different class, one NEET, one JEE, so different origin. Chintu, now Chintu failed in NEET, Montu also failed in JEE. So their parents thrown them out of their home, and somehow eventually there was a meeting between Chintu and Montu, and they started their own shop, tea stall, right? So Chintu and Montu NEET JEE tea stall. So somehow they're performing the similar function, but they have different origin and different structure. So that depicts, that is showing us the analogy. Okay. Now jumping to the next evidence, that is evidence from biochemistry. Now what biochemistry is saying us? Similarities in proteins, genes performing a given function among diverse organisms give clues to common ancestry. So like we say, we have the chimpanzees are our closest relative, because when we compare the DNA of human being and DNA of chimpanzees, there will be near about 99.9% similarities. Okay, so by comparing, comparative study of DNA and proteins, you can figure out which are the organisms, which animal is closer to us and which animal are distinct or far from us, right? In like in the course of evolution. Similarly, when we are studying the RH factor, right? RH factor that help us to define positive blood group or negative blood group. The RH factor present on the antigen, basically the RH antigen present on human RBC and the RH antigen present on RBC of rhesus monkey. They are quite similar, but they are not 100% similar. Even the discovery of RH factor or RH antigen was from the rhesus monkey. So again, this what does this showing us? This is telling us that yes, this RH antigen, basically RH antigen, is a glycoprotein. Antigens are glycoprotein. RH antigen somehow showing similarities in between rhesus monkey and human being, though they are not 100% similar. Okay, you will find that many enzymes, okay, available in market, they are similar in animals and human being. Many hormones, many animal hormones are utilized by human being, like in previously. Now we use genetically engineered insulin, but previously people used to use insulin which are obtained from cattle's pancreas, and they used to do successful work into our body to control the blood sugar, right? So that means somehow we are connected in through our ancestors, and this presence of proteins, enzymes, DNA, RNA, they are also giving us clue. Yes, we all are from a single entity. Next evidence. Now here we are going to talk about selection. We know about natural selection, the struggle for existence, the Darwinian theory, survival of the fittest. There will be variation among a population, and if suddenly there is environmental change, suppose there is a colony of white people. There is a colony of white people, their skin color is really fair, right? But as because they are reproducing sexually, there is formation of one or few individuals, they got dark skin tone. They got dark skin tone because of formation of too much melanin. Melanin is a pigment responsible for our skin color, right? So in a population, previously there was only white people, but in course of time, like when the reproduction was going on, there was some change, and there was suddenly in after few generation, you got to see that there are some number of dark people also present. Okay, now suddenly the environment changed, the sunlight become more intense. Okay, now you know that melanin helps us to like cope with sunlight. Is now how it will help us. The dark people, they will survive against the intense sunlight, but due to the high intensity of the sunlight, the white people, they were not managed to survive and they will die eventually. So as because there was variation produced among that population of white people, somehow the human or those males managed to survive, otherwise all would have died, right? So this is called natural selection. Now natural selection is natural, it's a boon of Almighty, right? But is there any real life example? Many will say that you are saying that we are descendants of monkeys. Now in front of our eyes, why these monkeys are thriving? They are not getting converted into human, right? Okay, see, evolution sometime they will take millions of years, sometime it quite fast, right? So if we observe artificial selection, somehow we can get some clues. How? So artificial selection means basically they are purely anthropogenic selection. Basically this is called selective breeding. Selective breeding. See, ancestor, in the market, in the vegetable market, you will get different vegetables: cauliflower, broccoli, kohlrabi, cabbage, pink cabbage, different kinds of vegetables. What? Cauliflower, kohlrabi, broccoli, pink cabbage. But do you know all these vegetables are originated from wild cabbage? Yes, their ancestral vegetable was wild cabbage. So in nature, everything whatever we are eating or consuming today, we have taken from nature, right? Now few farmers, they were fascinated about some varieties of that wild cabbage. They did selective breeding and they were successfully able to produce cauliflower. Few farmers, they were fascinated about the fluorescence of the kohlrabi, and successfully by the process of selective breeding they formed kohlrabi. Few farmers, they were fascinated about the flower formation of broccoli, the greenish one. They successfully selectively breeded them and they formed broccoli. Similarly, all the dogs, there are different varieties of dogs are there. There are German Shepherd, Bulldogs, there are Rottweiler, right? There are Doberman, there are Saint Bernard Shaw. But do you know that all their ancestor are similar? Somehow their ancestor were close relative to wolves. Okay. Now us human being, we had chosen certain variants of them and we did selective breeding and we have produced different breed. So that's called artificial selection. That is how we produce new breed. Now within a short span of time, if the youngest of like all the animals and organisms, that is human being, we can produce so much variation, we can generate so much diversity. So nature is omnipotent, right? Nature is omnipotent. It has enormous amount of power. It can do anything and everything. So why nature cannot produce this biodiversity, right? So artificial breeding is a clue that if we can select something artificially, nature can select it by its own manner. Okay. Now we'll talk about something called anthropogenic action to support natural selection. Okay. Natural selection by anthropogenic action. Real proof of natural selection, how nature selects. Now we'll talk about natural selection with the help of some anthropogenic action. Natural selection by anthropogenic action. The first is resistant production of resistant varieties, okay, by human activities. First thing, antibiotic resistance among different microorganisms. Second thing, herbicide or pesticide resistance among different herbs or paste. So that is basically example of anthropogenic action. Explaining it, how it happens. Antibiotic resistance. You suppose you are feeling fever today and you went to a doctor. Doctor had given you a course of azithromycin and 3 tablets are given to you. So you have consumed 1 tablet and the next day you felt that you are recovered. Now you are thinking from yourself that yes, I myself I am feeling recovered after taking 1 tablet, so why do I need to take more 2 tablets? So I won't be taking that, but that is a mistake for you. So basically what happens, you have seen the ad of Dettol. Dettol can kill 99.99% of germs, but what about the 0.1%? They will still survive. So after taking 1 azithromycin, it has killed 99% of the germs. That's why you are feeling recovered. But that 1% or 0.1% germ still residing into your body, and that will create antibiotic resistance in near future if you are not completing the course. If you would have taken the 3 azithromycin tablets, they would have killed 100% of the germs. On the next time, again, if you are feeling sick, the doctor will give you azithromycin. But the next time, you have taken only 1 azithromycin. That means you have successfully killed 99% of the bacteria into your body. 1% they are still surviving against that and azithromycin, because they have become the azithromycin resistant one. So next time when doctor uncle will give you azithromycin tablet, azithromycin antibiotic, they're not gonna work. So he has to change the antibiotic again. Okay, herbicide resistance or pesticide resistance. So suppose to repel the mosquitoes, you are using all out, right? Mortein all out. But when you bought the new like pack of all out, the new machine of all out, successfully it is repelling the mosquitoes. There is no mosquito. You will feel happy. But you are using that same all out from the same company again and again for continuously 2, 3, 4 months. Now what we will observe, that the all out, okay, you are switching on the all out, the smell is also coming, the chemical of the all out is also getting evaporated, and the mosquitoes are also dancing inside your room. That means they have gained the resistance again that chemical present into the all out. So that means that nature has selected those insects or microorganism against the overdose or irrational use of those herbicides or antibiotics, right? Okay, another example is given in our NCERT, that is industrial melanism. Okay, again that is a natural selection induced by anthropogenic action. Okay, now what is industrial melanism? Before 1820, before the industrial revolution, okay, in the cities and villages there were more number of white moths. Okay, but what is observed after the 1920, the industrialization or industrial revolution, we observed that there is more number of dark moths or melanized moth. Okay, now what is the reason? Is it the carbon particles did a mutation into that white moths and they got converted into dark moths? It's not like that. There are 2 varieties of the same moth, that is Biston betullaria, white moth Biston betullaria typica, and the dark moth or black moth or melanized moth Biston betullaria carbonaria, right? So there are 2 different varieties. So both of them were present during the time of before the time of industrial revolution, but as because where they will be resting, the moths, they will be resting upon the bark of trees, and if there is no pollution into the air, okay, there will be symbiosis, there will be symbiotic relationship, or symbiotic growth of lichens can be observed on the bark of trees, and lichens are white in color. So that's why it's written here lichen, they're the pollution indicators. So before industrialization there was no pollution, and upon the white lichen formation on the bark of the trees, suppose if two moths are sitting together, one is white moth and another is black moth. So what will happen? So what will happen now? The predator like birds, they will easily can observe the black moth because they are contrasting in color before industrialization, but as because the white moths, they'll make a camouflage with the white lichen, the the birds or the predators cannot observe them, so they won't be harming them. So that's why we can observe more white moths, okay, because the black moths were hunted by their predators. But what, after the industrial revolution, the scenario had changed. Now the nature will select the black moths over white moth. Now due to the pollution and carbon particles, what will happen now? The lichens will die, the bark of trees will become blackish. Now again the background is black. Now you cannot identify the black moths as because they are doing camouflage. Now nature has selected them, but the white moths, they will create contrast against the black background, and now what will happen? The bird, the predator will easily catch and kill them. So that is the reason. It's not any kind of mutation or any other thing. It's an example of natural selection, how nature is selecting. Before industrial revolution, nature selected the white moth. After industrial revolution, industrialization, nature is selecting the black moths over white one, right? So that's how nature is selecting them into two different time zones, and that is purely due to the anthropogenic action or human action, right? Okay, so you can say that after the industrialization in city areas, there were more dark moth or melanized moth, but if you go to observe the rural areas, okay, even after industrialization, if there is no pollution in rural areas or villages, still you can find white moths. In rural areas there will be still low count of melanic moths. So after industrial revolution, the area where there is pollution, there you can observe that nature will select the dark moths. Area where there is no pollution, like in rural areas, even you can find white moths, right? So that's why it said that evolution is not evolution is stochastic process. Evolution is not always giving rise of advanced one from the primitive ones always. Generally we say that evolution means formation of advanced organism from the primitive organism. So it's not about that. Evolution is about choosing the fit one, depending on who will be the fittest, that nature will be choosing the fit one. Before industrialization, nature had chosen the white moth. After industrialization, nature had chosen the black moth. So that's why we say that evolution is a stochastic process. Stochastic means random. Stochastic means random process. Okay, you never know that you can be a small man, but you can cast a large shadow into the wall. Okay, so evolution is not about that the son of a king will become the king. Evolution is not that the powerful people come from powerful places, okay, or the powerful people makes places powerful. Evolution is about the casting of shadow. It's about the reproductive fitness. It's never about the physical fitness. It's a random phenomena. Sometimes it's a gradual phenomena. Sometimes it's quicker phenomena. Okay. So to prove the natural selection, few more examples provided by Darwin. So we are going to talk about adaptive radiation. Okay. Now again, the adaptive radiation is related to the diversification or the divergent mode of evolution. Okay. So what adaptive radiation will say? Basically, Darwin used to study the Galapagos Island. Okay. That is why he is famous about. This is the Galapagos Island. And the island has different zones, different land masses. They are separated or isolated from each other. But together, all these smaller islands combinedly we call them Galapagos Island. And basically, Darwin has studied on different plants or animal species, but his favorites were finches. So that's why they are so much famous. They're so famous. Darwin finches. Okay. So what about Darwin finches? Different species in a given geographical area starting from a point and literally radiating to other areas of habitats. That is called diversification or adaptive radiation. So it's like that. Suppose this is the mainland of Galapagos Island. There used to live a population of what? Population of finches. But as soon as the natural calamity came, or suppose there was scarcity of food, they got radiated, they got diversified into different islands. Okay. Now in course of time there will be modification into the shape and size of their beaks. So the ancestral ones, they had large beaks to crush the seeds of fruits. Okay. So that is called adaptive radiation. Their ancestor was same. The ancestral finch, they had large beak to crush a hard shell of seeds, but once they are radiated among different zones of Galapagos, the shape and size of beaks started changing. Okay, so that is called, this diversification is called radiation. And upon radiation, suppose in few finches of few like piece of that island, you will be finding the smaller, very smaller and sharper beaks, right? In few finches you will find larger beaks. In few finches you will be finding like beaks of moderate size. So basically, if they have sharper and smaller beaks, they are for to grab the nectar, flower nectar and insects. If they have developed larger beaks will help them to crush the like nuts and the seeds. The medium sized beaks, they will help them to collect the flesh from the fruits or insects, right? So depending upon their feeding habit, basically there was modification into their beak shape and size. So that was all about the Darwin finches, and that is a good example of adaptive radiation. Okay. Can you please solve this question? Yes. So the question is saying that what is true about finches? Okay. present in Galapagos Island. Yes, they are present in Galapagos Island. Have changes in beak pattern or shape as of food available. Yes, based upon their food, there was change in their beak pattern. Okay, again I am repeating. If you observe a finch having sharp beak, that means primarily that is eating on nectar of flower or insect. If you observe a finch having very large beak, that means that is feeding upon the seeds or nuts. If you observe a finch having medium size beak, that means that is mainly feeding upon fruits. So based upon their feeding habit, there was the change. They arose from common ancestor, that is also true. Best example of adaptive radiation, obviously. So all A, B, C, D are true about finches. So again, the adaptive radiation is a good example of natural selection, and adaptive radiation is also divergent evolution. Okay. Another example of adaptive radiation, that is marsupial radiation. Okay. This marsupial radiation, again that is example of divergent evolution. Marsupial evolution was observed into Australia, right? The continent called Australia, and that is also provide us evidence of geographical. It also provide us evidence against for geographical isolation. Okay. Now, have you ever questioned that why these marsupials are abundant in Australia only? Why they are abundant in Australia? Okay. The reason is, once there was a single piece of land in our earth, and that single piece of land we used to call it Pangea. Now this Pangea started like forming cracks, and land masses started distributing from one place to another place. So that basically formed different piece of landmass, and the mechanism is called continental drift. In detail we learn it in geography under plate tectonic movement. So basically in prehistoric time there was a single continent that is called Pangea, and suddenly the land masses got drifted from each other, and there was formation of different continents: Asia continent, Europe continent, Africa continent, America continent, and obviously Oceania or Australia continent. Okay. Now there is formation of prototherians and eutherian mammals into the similar piece of land, called Pangea. Okay. There is formation of prototheria as well as there is formation of eutheria. Placental mammals called eutheria, prototheria, the marsupial mammals. Okay. Now suddenly, as because the eutherians or the placental mammals are more developed, they started overriding the marsupial ones. Okay, as because they are quite weaker compared to the eutherian mammals. So they started wiping out the marsupial mammals or the prototherian mammals, right? But the continental drift of Australia, it act as a boon for the marsupial mammals present into that particular land zone. Okay, this area of Australia that was rich with prototherian mammals, that was rich with prototherian or marsupial mammals. So as because the Australia got drifted from the rest of the world, or this is an example of geographical isolation, and the isolated piece of land conserved the Australian marsupial or the marsupial mammals. Okay, as because there was no placental mammals to overeat them, to destroy them, right? But eventually the rest part of the world, there was both prototherians and eutherians, and gradually the eutherians, they started killing the, or they were competing with the prototherians, and prototherians were gradually abolished from the rest part of the world. But still you will find it into the Australia. Okay, but here we are talking about a different thing. Now in Australia there are some ancestral marsupials. There are some ancestral marsupials. Now obviously everything is need driven. So there was a need, and marsupials, they started radiating into different parts of the continent Australia, and they got diversified, and that divergent evolution had given rise organisms or the species or animals like kangaroo, marsupial rat, bandit rat, tiger cat, Tasmanian wolf, sugar glider, marsupial mole, koala, and marsupial bandicoot, right? So that's how we can study this topic of marsupial radiation. Okay, now another topic. Now from divergent evolution we are going to study convergent evolution. Convergent evolution. Now what do you mean by convergent evolution? Convergent evolution means two different species from different origin will come closer, will start living in the same habitat, and they will develop some similar characteristics, features. So that is called convergent evolution. Now this convergent evolution can be a consequence of more than one adaptive radiation. So here the example is given in NCERT as well. Okay, placental mammals and few Australian marsupials, they have somehow similarities in their structure, though they originally they are different. And so here we are going to study the difference and the similarities in between the placental mammals and Australian marsupials. Okay, they have some similarities in spite of having different origin, right? So suppose there were two islands. This is one island, this is another island. This is the island of Australian marsupials. This is the island of placental mammals. Now in course of time there was adaptive radiation of these placental mammals. They have diversified, as well as there was diversification of these Australian marsupials. So we can observe two different adaptive radiation of two different types inside two different types of animals, placental mammals and Australian marsupials. But in course of time, gradually they came closer to each other. And they developed some similarities. Like placental mammal moles have some similarities with marsupial mole. Placental mammal anteater have some similarities with marsupial numbat or marsupial anteater. Placental mammal mouse has similarities with marsupial mouse. Placental mammal lemur has similarities as marsupial spotted cuscus. Placental mammal flying squirrel has similarities with flying phalanger. Placental mammal bobcat has similarities with Tasmanian tiger cat. Placental mammal wolf has similarities with an extinct animal, a marsupial extinct animal, that is called Tasmanian wolf. So this real example how two different adaptive radiation had given rise convergent evolution. Okay, now let's jump to the next topic. It is biological evolution. Again, here we'll be discussing some theories. We'll be discussing with like the scientist Darwin, Malthus, okay, and their theories. So what this theory is saying that the rate of appearance of new form is linked to the life cycle of the or the lifespan. So the tagline is the rate of appearance of new forms. That means here they're talking about probability of formation of the variants. Okay, the rate of appearance of new forms of the variants is linked to their lifespan or life cycle. So the relationship is like that. Rate of variation is directly proportional to indirectly proportional to lifespan. That means if an organism with short lifespan if you are comparing an organism with short lifespan and another organism with long lifespan or large lifespan, so there are two different cases. One organism, suppose this organism is a bacteria. Another organism, suppose that is a fish. So according to this theory, as because the bacteria, the rate of replication, the lifespan is very small, so the variation will arrive really quickly. So the chances of evolution is higher in case of bacteria, and as because the fish, it has a long lifespan, the chances of appearance of variation is really slower. So the process of evolution is faster in bacteria. You can like if you are culturing a bacteria into your lab, really quick you can form new strains of that bacteria. But if you are culturing fish into your pond, it will take thousands of years, or you can say millions of years, as because their lifespan is really long to generate new variety or even new species. Okay, so that is the relationship between the lifespan and rate of appearance of new criteria. And that's why he said that nature selects for fitness which are inherited. Okay, now if the variation is appeared into a particular individual, that individual can transmit or transfer that variant gene or variant allele to its upcoming progenies. Okay, but Darwin was unaware about that, how the variations are getting transferred into the upcoming progenies, right? So we have to learn two key concepts of Darwin or Darwinism or Darwinian theory. So there are two key concepts. First concept, branching descents, or you can say descents with modification, first concept. Second concept, natural selection. So already we have discussed what is branching descent. It shows us the pattern of evolution or the phylogeny, or the route map of the ancestors and the descendants. Which are the organisms are the ancestors one, and which are the organisms who are formed as descendants. So that is called phylogeny. That is called phylogeny. Okay. And natural selection, by tracking, if you track that pathway and if you study their comparative anatomy and morphology, you will get to know that natural selection, that is the driving force for evolution. Nature had selected that particular descendant which was modified, or the variants. Okay. Now, I was telling that Darwin was silent or ignorant about the work of the great scientist Gregor John Mendel, okay, the father of genetics. Because the Mendel, he was less biologist and more mathematician. He represented the data on the pea plants, okay, as statistical format or mathematical format. And as a biologist or philanthropist or philosophist, it was very difficult for the Darwin to understand the work of Mendel, right? So basically, that's why Darwin was unaware about the fact that how these variations are getting inherited into the upcoming progenies. So what Darwin basically said, so Darwin, the theory of Darwin, he said that the theory of pangenesis. You will learn in higher classes about the theory of pangenesis, where he was wrong, totally wrong. So there was no idea, Darwin was not aware about the genes or the chromosomes, right? So Darwin used to think that this germ cell of our body, basically they are formed by gamules of like different parts of our body, different parts or different cells of our body shades some of their entity, and all those shaded entities will combine together to form gamules. Basically they are the germs, and inside them there will be a tiny or a miniature human being is there, and eventually when that is get inseminated into the female body or into the mother womb, that will get enlargement and will form a new human being or a new animal. Okay, so that is the theory of pangenesis, which obviously later it was disproved. Okay, now before Darwin there was another great scientist, we need to talk about him. There is Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, right? Okay, so Lamarckism. Lamarck was much senior than Darwin. Lamarck basically was a scientist of late 17th century and early 18th century. Darwin was a scientist of middle 18th century or late 18th century. So what Lamarck said, and where there is contradiction between the Lamarckism and Darwinism. First understand that. So Lamarck said that, so according to Lamarck, if there is any sudden environmental change, a particular organism of individuals of a population, they will face new need, and that new need will create an urge inside their body, and to fulfill that urge they will start using some organs, or they will stop using some organs. That is the theory of use and disuse. Okay, and that will create a vital force inside their biological system, and that vital force will give rise new traits inside that particular individual. And once that new traits are or new trait is arrived, that will get inherited, to the next progeny, that is called inheritance of acquired traits. Okay, he even argued by saying that a blacksmith gets strong muscle for his work. Okay, so once a blacksmith has gathered the strong muscular body, okay, upon hard work again and again, day to day work, he will pass this characteristics feature to his son. Okay, so his son will inherit those strong muscles according to Lamarck. But that is not the fact. We know that the son of king will not be, may not be a king, right? So that is the funda of evolution, and that's why we said the Lamarck was wrong in this manner. So the theory of Lamarck also explained in the form of this giraffe, the evolution of giraffe. So according to Lamarck, the ancestral giraffe, their height was like zebra or horse merely. Suddenly what happened? There was drought and all the grass wiped out. So they had only one option, the large trees and their leaves. So they started stretching their necks, and gradually that created a vital force inside their body, and that vital force ultimately successfully enlarged their this cervical vertebral bones, and gradually the length of throat of giraffe started increasing, and that's how the modern day giraffe came into existence. So that is the theory of Lamarck. But if we contradict with Darwinism, Darwin said that no, it's not the case. Already there was a population of giraffe where the few giraffes, they used to look like zebra, they had short neck, and there was few giraffes, the variant ones or the modified ones or the descents with modifications, they had enlarged necks, right? So when the drought came, the grasses wiped out, eventually the giraffes with short necks, they will die, and the giraffes will long neck, they will survive because they could reach to the leaves of trees. So that is the difference between Darwinism and Lamarckism. Okay, even the Lamarckism, the inheritance of acquired trait, this theory was disproved by another scientist called Weismann. So he experimented on rats. So he took few rats. Suppose he had taken one male rat and one female rat, and there was breeding in between them. Now prior to breed them, he used to cut their tails, and then there was mating between male and female rat. But every time he used to observe that there is formation of a tailed rat, and he kept on doing the same thing for 22 generations, but there was no offspring without tail. Each and every generation and each and every offspring, they had long tail. So that's why, and that's how he disapproved the theory of inheritance of acquired traits. So he argued that for 22 generation, I have cut the tails of rats. So that's basically inherited trait now. That's basically acquired trait now. The tailless rat. Okay, now the mother rat is tailless, father rat is tailless. So their progeny, obviously, according to the Lamarck, is gonna be tailless. But unlike the Lamarck theory, Lamarckism, the acquired trait was not inherited in this case. So Weismann had to come with another theory of somatoplasm and theory of germplasm. Okay, basically this is the funda of somatic cell and germ cell, like gamete forming cells. So for the first time, Weizmann and his associates and colleagues disapproved the theory of Lamarck as well as few aspects of Darwinism, disapproved the theory of the pangenesis, and we got to know about there are two types of cell present into our body, somatic cells and germ cells, and eventually that will form gametes, and then upon fertilization there will be formation of zygote and new life. Okay. Now Darwin was influenced by another scientist. It is Thomas Malthus. Basically, he was an economist. The work of Thomas Malthus on population influenced Darwin. Okay, so basically the over reproduction in a population, then struggle of existence and survival of fittest. These theories of Darwin was influenced by many scientists. Few parts are taken from Herbert Spencer, few part taken from Thomas Malthus. So according to Thomas Malthus, what he said, theoretically population size should grow exponentially because individuals of population, they are reproducing, so this should be the exponential growth curve, right? But in reality, what we can observe that size of population are stable, except some seasonal fluctuations. Seasonal fluctuation means the breeding season and the season of drought and all, or natural calamity, when many numbers or members of population will die, and in breeding season because of breeding a new progeny will come into existence. So except some seasonal fluctuation, the growth of population is like this, is not exponential growth. Okay, so this is the theory, this is the reality. Now how to explain this? So he explained that natural resources are limited, though animals are outbreeding, but the natural resources are limited, and they will start competition, they will start competing with each other. Members vary in characteristics, and while they are competing with each other, the member vary in characteristics, the variant ones will eventually survive, and the variations are inherited to the next progeny. The variations are inherited to the next progeny. So that was the theory of Thomas Malthus. Okay. Again, now this is the time we are going to talk about how the variations are arriving into particular individuals of a population, and how they are getting inherited or transferred to the next generation. So the question is that what is the origin of this variation? This is the first question, how the variations are produced, and how does speciation occur? Speciation means formation of a newer type of species from a existing one. So that is called speciation. Okay. Basically, this is basically a genetical aspect. Inheritance, the topic of inheritance. So we know that father of genetics Gregor Mendel, what he said there are some inheritable factors. Basically, Mendel was unaware about genes and chromosome, so he defined that inheritance due to the presence of some inheritable factors present into our body, and basically we call those inheritable factors as genotypes And if you search for genotypes, you have to study about genes and alleles. The different varieties of genes are called alleles, and obviously they are gonna influence phenotypes. So that is Mendelism. In some chapters in detail, obviously you will be learning about Mendelism. So Mendel, though he was unaware about genes or chromosomes, but somehow closer to the fact there is something present into our body, into our cells, which are responsible for transferring our trait, okay, to the next generation. But here our the father figure of evolution, the pioneer of evolution, Mr. Darwin, he ignored Mendelism. Okay, so according to him, there will be appearance of minor variation progeny by progeny. Little variation will start accumulating with time. Okay, and these variations are quite small. The variations are quite small. They are directional. Okay, suppose this is a species called A. The variation will appear, will an individual called A1, the next progeny A2, next progeny A3, and upon a long time gap, while these variations are getting accumulated after a certain time, that can give rise a new species called B. So it's a time taking journey. So he said that it's a gradual event. Evolution is a gradual event. Evolution is a directional event. Evolution, the like will not give rise a new species overnight. There will be accumulation of small variation generation by generation. It was the theory of evolution given by Darwin was challenged by Hugo de Vries. So what Hugo de Vries said? So he concluded his theory with practical work on evening primrose, right? Evening primrose, a flowering plant, and he told us about the theory of mutation. Now, what do you mean by mutation? Mutation means random change in our genetic setup inside the DNA. So that is called mutation. So suppose there is a strand of DNA and the bases are like A, T, T, G, C, A. So if there is mutation, what will happen? Suppose due to some chemical factor, the G will get converted. Now it will become A, T, T, A, C, A. So total genetic setup is changed now. So this process of random change in DNA is called mutation. And according to De Vries, the mutations are random. You never know in which direction and when this mutation will take place. So it's a sudden process. So he said this is a random one. It has no direction. Mutation can be towards positive direction. There can be sudden mutation that can make you Superman, Spider-Man, Hulk. There can be sudden mutation that can make you a patient of cancer, right? So this sudden jumping, the single step jump, which can cause large variation, that is called saltation. So saltation means basically jump. Saltation means jump. So that's why we say that Darwinism and the theory of mutation by De Vries, that is contradictory. According to Darwin, there will be accumulation of minor variation, but according to the mutation theory, the mutations are random and overnight the mutation can take place, right? The evolution is gradual according to the Darwin. The evolution is basically saltation. It's not a gradual process according to Hugo de Vries. Okay, and here lies the answer. Here lies the answer that if we follow the theory of mutation, that which appear earlier, which came earlier, is it the egg or is it chicken? Okay, so suppose there was a bird called proto chicken. That proto chicken laid an egg. That proto chicken laid an egg, and inside that egg there was sudden mutation took place. So there was change in the genotype of that egg, and when the egg hatched, we got hen or chicken. So suddenly, with this knowledge, we can say that the egg from which the chicken or the hen is coming out, that egg is not the egg of chicken or hen, that egg is the egg of proto chicken. So we got the answer. It's the hen, it's the chicken which came earlier. Okay. Now when this hen will lay egg, this egg will give rise to another chicken or another hen, right? So if someone asks you which is earlier, so hen is earlier than egg of hen, because this egg from which the hen generated or hen came into existence, that was not the egg of this chicken or hen, that was the egg of proto chicken. So basically, Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, there is a principle which was given by two scientists, G.H. Hardy and W. Weinberg. Okay. Now basically, they were also influenced by the work of Mendel. Basically, there is a bunch of Mendelian genetics, and Mendelian genetics was also rediscovered by Punnett, a scientist called Punnett. That's why when you were studying the monohybrid cross and dihybrid cross, you are making the Punnett square. The statistical study or the algebraic study of Mendelian genetics was rediscovered by Punnett, and based upon those knowledge, Hardy and Weinberg stated their theory. Okay, so what this theory is saying, that it states that the allele frequencies in a population are stable and is constant from generation to generation in the absence of disturbing factor. Listen, Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium is supporting a normal progeny-wise progress of a species. Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium will not support evolution. So if there are some change in Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium or allelic frequency, that means that particular population gonna leading towards forming variation and evolution. So Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium or Hardy-Weinberg principle, that is not supporting evolution, that is opposing evolution. Exception of Hardy-Weinberg principle, that is supporting evolution. And they said that allelic frequencies in a population are stable and is constant from generation to generation, and we say and we express is like that: P plus Q equals to 1. So that is the allelic frequency, right? P the dominant allele, Q recessive allele, and their summation will be 1. And if you observe their binomial expression, P plus Q whole square we're gonna get p square plus 2pq plus q square, and that will also remain the same, that is 1. So if p plus q square equals to 1, p plus q equals to 1, p plus q square also will be equal to 1, and p square plus 2pq plus q square, that will be equal to 1. So that is how the allelic frequencies are conserved or stable generation by generation. So with some example I am giving you the proof. So Mendel said that if you observe the monohybrid cross, capital T, there will be crossbreeding between capital T and small t. Capital T, small t. So they are the allelic configuration. Right. Tall pea plant, dwarf or short pea plant. So this is parental generation. This is parental generation. Now if you calculate the allelic frequency here, either it's satisfying that is it 1 or not. So capital T, there are 2 capital T allele, and small t, there are 2. So total there are 4 alleles. So there are total 4 alleles, 2 capital T and 2 small t. So what will be the frequency of capital T? Frequency of capital T will be 2 by 4, that is half. Frequency of small t again will be 2 by 4, equal to half. So T plus T, T means here P, the dominant frequency of dominant allele, Q the frequency of recessive allele. So T plus T will be half plus half equals to 1. Now let's move towards the F1 generation. There will be capital T, small t. There will be capital T, small t. Okay. So here it's like capital T small t into capital T small t. Though it's a selfing process, but we have to represent into this manner. Now capital T small t, here also similar thing. There are total 4 alleles, 2 capital T, 2 small t into the gene pool, 2 capital T, 2 small t. So what will be the frequency of capital T? T equals to 2 by 4, small t equals to 2 by 4. So half plus half equals to 1. Now let's talk about the F2 generation here. In F2 generation, we got a capital T, we got 2 capital T small t, and we got 1 small t. Now here also we have to calculate the allelic frequency. Okay. Now how many total alleles are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Total 8 alleles are there. So what will be the frequency of capital T now? How many capital T are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it will be 4 by 8. What is the frequency of small t? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 alleles of small t. So again the frequency will be 4 by 8. So t equals to 4 by 8, small t equals to 4 by 8. So again it will be half. So capital T plus small t, always half plus half equals to 1. So that's why it's justified to say that the P generation, F1 generation and second filial generation, so generation by generation, if it's following the Mendelian genetics, the allelic frequency, the summation of allelic frequencies always will be constant, that is 1, right? So that is the beauty of Hardy-Weinberg principle. So the gene pool, the total genes and their alleles in a population. So here only if we talk about the gene pool, there is a capital T allele, there is a small t allele. So that is the gene pool. Right. So gene pools during crossing over resulting in genetic variation remains a constant. This is called genetic equilibrium or Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. See, so according to the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, these are the homozygous or pure individuals, and the variants is because their crossbreeding has occurred. The variant is heterozygous dominant one. This is homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, heterozygous dominant, homozygous dominant, heterozygous dominant, homozygous recessive. So these are different combination of allelic format and different variants, right? But their summation, sum total of their genetic frequency will be same. Now how it's justifying the binomial expression? How it's justifying the binomial expression? Remember the binomial expression? Remember the binomial expression? Binomial expression was p square plus 2pq plus q square. This was the binomial expression of p plus q whole square, right? So p square, here p square means the frequency of the homozygous dominant, q square, that means frequency of homozygous recessive, and 2pq, that means the frequency of heterozygous dominant. So if you observe the Mendel's experiment or the monohybrid cross, if T, the frequency of T is here, we consider the frequency of T as capital A or frequency of small t as small a. So here capital T means small a, that means a square, right? Now 2pq, capital A, small a, capital A, small a. So capital T small t plus capital T small t, that means 2 capital A small a, 2 capital T small t, small a capital A, small a capital T, that means 2 capital T small t, that means 2 capital A small a. And lastly, small t means small a, so small a square. So that's how it's justified to say that Hardy and Weinberg equilibrium, they were true to define the population genetics or the Mendelian genetical aspect of population. Okay. So is it understood? So we are moving forward. Now we have to learn the factors which are affecting Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, and if the factors are affected, that will lead to evolution. Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium will not lead to evolution, but it will preserve the constant genetic allelic frequency. But whenever there is the equilibrium is affected, the allelic frequencies will get affected, and that will lead to evolution. So what are the factors they can affect Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium? First factor, there are 5 factors. First factor is genetic migration or gene migration or gene flow. Second factor, genetic drift. Third factor, mutation. Fourth factor, genetic recombination. And fifth factor, natural selection. So what are the 5 factors which can influence the Hardy-Weinberg principle and leads towards the evolution? Gene migration or gene flow, gene migration and gene flow, genetic drift, mutation, gene mutation, genetic recombination, and the fifth one, natural selection. So one by one, let's study them. So what do you mean by genetic recombination? Gene migration or gene flow. Gene flow from one population to another. Gene flow occurs if migration happens multiple times. Okay. So if some individuals, there is a population and these dots are individuals, this is a particular allele, and the yellow dots, suppose they are another allele. Now there was some driving force from nature. So these yellow alleles, they are immigrating from this population and they are getting settled into another landmass. So that is example of when individuals are migrating, they're also going with this yellow colored allele gene. So that is called gene migration, right? And if the gene migration is a frequent phenomena, it's happening again and again, so we call this as gene flow. And in course of time, how it will be affecting the allelic frequency. Suppose before the gene migration, there was P plus Q, a white gene and yellow gene, and once they are migrated, now in this particular population, you will find only P allele. So now P equal to 1 because the Q allele that has migrated to another zone. So now P equals to 1, but P plus Q is not equal to 1. So that's how the allelic frequency is changed. So in order to satisfy Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, always you have to maintain P plus Q equals to 1. But for this particular population, now the Q allele, it has migrated from one place to another place. So in that particular island, suppose only P alleles are remaining. Okay, individuals with this P gene or P alleles are remaining. So here P equals to, here there will be P equal to 1 because Q alleles, the individuals already migrated from one place to another place. So that's how the genetic equilibrium is affected. This is how the genetic equilibrium is affected. Okay. And in course of time, how it gonna lead to evolution? In course of time, for this island, you will find only P, and in this island, you will find only Q. Now, in the recent past, they were close relatives, but in coming future, as because they are dwelling into two different zones, there will be variation, there will be new adaptation, new acclimatization. Now this species will be modified into a new one. That's how gene migration or flow can lead to evolution. Okay, now let's talk about genetic drift. What is genetic drift? The random fluctuation by chance causing change in frequency. So it's always genetic drift means it's a accidental process, it's a random process, it's a by chance process. Suppose another example I am giving, an island, there used to live some birds, these yellow colored birds and these pink colored birds and also these red colored birds. But due to some natural calamity, these red colored birds, they flew away and established their population to a new island. Okay, so as because all the red colored bird has gone, so this particular gene pool will lose this red colored allele, so the allelic frequency will change drastically. Okay, so this is called genetic drift, or this is also can be possible another with another example. I am explaining genetic drift due to the natural calamity. If all the red colored bird will die into this island, that also will cause changing in genetic equilibrium. Suppose previously it was like this, P plus Q plus R, this is the genetic equilibrium of this particular population. Now once suppose R red colored, they all have died, now the genetic equilibrium will be like this, P plus Q equal to 1. So again the gene frequency, the allelic frequency has changed from P plus Q plus R equals to 1 to P plus Q equals to 1. So whenever there is change in allelic frequency, that can lead to evolution, or that will break the law of Hardy and Weinberg. Okay. Now the previous case, if this red colored birds successfully flew from this island to that island and they had established their own population now, so we can also call them founders, and that is called founders effect. So that is called founders effect. Okay, so gene migration or genetic drift can lead to founders effect as well as genetic bottleneck. Now what is genetic bottleneck? If there is a bottle and there are some balls, yellow colored balls, green colored balls, red colored balls inside it, and if you are shaking this bottle, suppose there are some small balls of blue color, so these small balls will escape out from the narrow channel of the bottle, and when these blue balls, all the blue balls, they are out from this bottle, the number of balls present into the bottle will get reduced. That is called also can be called compared as genetic bottleneck. So suppose these different colors are not balls, these are different alleles of genes in a population. Okay, yellow color allele, red allele, blue allele, green allele. Now if all the blue alleles are lost by gene migration or genetic drift, then what will happen? Like this bottleneck, the number of allele will reduce, or the gene pool will shrink like the neck of a bottle. So that's why when the founders effect is happening, that also create a genetic bottleneck with the original or their ancestral gene pool, because the ancestral gene pool will lose some allele. Okay. Now mutation, already we have studied mutation when we were talking about Hugo de Vries. It results in formation of new phenotypes over few generations. This lead to speciation. So like the example of proto chicken, there was a bird called proto chicken. It laid an egg and there was sudden mutation into it, a genetic change. Once the egg is hatched, you got a chicken. It was not similar to their parent proto chicken. Okay, so within a single generation, we got chicken from its ancestral proto chicken by the process of quick saltation of genetic equilibrium or genetic frequency, that we call mutation. Okay, now let's talk about gene recombination, just because without gene recombination there won't be formation of variation, specifically in sexually reproducing population, right? So reshuffling of gene combination, the gene pool, total genes and their alleles in a population is called gene pool, during crossing over resulting in genetic variation. Okay, basically what happens during the formation of gamete, sperm and ovum, there will be meiotic division, meiosis. Okay, specifically during the time of first meiotic division, the reshuffling, the chromosomes will exchange their parts. The chromosomes will exchange their part, that is called genetic recombination, and thus a new varieties are formed. For example, suppose these are the chromosomes of father. These are the chromosomes of mother. Now, while this genetic reshuffling is taking place, the chromosome will interchange their part and eventually that will form a recombinant or new type of chromosomal pattern, right? When there reshuffling of chromosome happening, the chromosomes will change their arms, and this reshuffling of chromosomal arms in between the non-sister chromatids, that may lead to variation or new trait. Okay, and upon generation by generation, that may lead to evolution. So directly gene recombination is not responsible for evolution, but that is helping in to rapid up the process of evolution. Okay, now let's solve this question. A statement based question. Statement 1 is saying genetic drift occurs if gene frequency of small population changes purely by chance. Yes, this is true. Genetic drift occurs if genetic frequency of small population change occur purely by chance, accidental phenomena. Yes. Statement 2, mostly small drifted population may become founder and lead to speciation. Yes, from this island few of the individuals will flew away to another island to establish a new population as founder. So that is called founders effect. With new established population, there will be founders effect. With the old population, there will be genetic bottleneck. Right. So statement 1 and 2 both are correct. Okay. One thing I had forgotten while I was explaining Hardy-Weinberg principle Yes. The Hardy-Weinberg principle is applicable for large population. It's not applicable for small population. Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium is applicable in a randomly mating population. Population. Okay. In Hardy-Weinberg population, there should not be any migration or mutation. Okay. Now the fifth factor which can affect Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, there is natural selection. So there are three types of natural selection. There are three types of natural selection you have to study. First type of natural selection, that is stabilizing selection. Second type, directional selection. Third type, the disruptive selection. So what is a stabilizing selection? Here more individuals acquire, the mean character value and variation is reduced. Okay, so suppose as a graphical representation, this is the number of population, this is the allele. So position A and B, they are the extreme position. Position C, this is the main position. So suppose the extreme color in human being, white and dark, and the A is white colored skin, B is dark colored skin, C is the complexion, not too much dark, not too much white. So if you observe Indian population, what you can observe basically, the graph of Indian population is like that. There will be more population belonging to the mean value or the complex color, not too much dark, not too much white population. So that is example of stabilizing selection. Okay, now if you observe the weight of baby, okay, weight of newborn. So extreme values are like 5 kg too much high and 1.5 kg too much low. The mean value is 2.5 to 3 kg. Okay, so the children or the child who will born with overweight, they will eventually die. The child who was born with the weight, overweight also dies. Underweight 1.5 kg or 1 kg, he or she will die. Then who are going to survive? The child who has obtained or gained the mean value, that is the middle weight. So in color of Indian population, Indian human being, okay, and the weight of newborn child, example of stabilizing selection. Okay, now directional selection, stabilizing selection, another example is our height. So the extreme height is like Great Khali, 7 feet, 7.5 feet, and the dwarf 3 feet, 2.5 feet, 3 feet, 3.5 feet. So what is the average height of India? 5.5 feet. So they are the mean valued human. So that is also example of stabilizing selection. Nature has selected human with average height, not the taller one, not the dwarfer one. Now directional selection is a selection where individuals of one extreme value other than the mean character value are more favored. So directional value here the graph, either the graph will be like this, or the graph will be like this. So example of that, example of directional selection. Right now we were discussing about the topic of industrial melanism. Before the industrial revolution, nature selected Biston Betularia typica, that is white moth, and after industrial revolution, nature selected Biston Betularia carbonaria, it is black moth or melanistic moth. So either you choose, either nature is selecting white or nature is selecting black. Nature is not selecting something which is in between to them. So that is the selection of extreme value. Okay. Now the third one, the disruptive selection. Disruptive selection. Individuals of both extremes character value at both ends of the disruption curve are more favored. So how you can draw the graph here? A and B are the extreme value and C the mean value. So here the nature will select A and B. There will be less presence of mean value or the disruptive selection. So example of disruptive selection is Darwin finches. So what nature did selected? Nature did select the birds either with short, sharp beak or the birds with large or heavier beak. The birds with middle sized beak were not selected by nature. Okay, the short beaked finches, they were modified or adapted to eat nectars of flower and insect, to catch insect, and the large beaks are good for breaking the seeds. Some mediocre, the middle sized beaked one, eventually in the race, in the competition, they lost the race. So nature didn't selected the mean value, nature selected both the extreme value, that is called disruptive selection. Okay, now let's solve this question. Questions are the report cards of our understanding, right? So it's saying that gene migration or gene flow, genetic drift, mutation, genetic recombination, and the natural selection, the 5 factors affect Hardy-Weinberg principles. Here the actual meaning of the effect is that disturbs genetic equilibrium and thus causes evolution, right? Okay. Now let's quickly study the brief account, the brief history of evolution. Brief history of evolution. Okay, so we'll start with the appearance of first cellular life in the form of anaerobic chemoheterotropic archaebacteria 2 billion years ago or 2000 million years ago. There was arrival of first cell. Okay, now gradually they got evolved into chemoheterotrophs to chemoautotrophs, then photoautotrophs. Okay, first invertebrates were developed around 500 million years ago. First invertebrate, Okay. Evolution of jawless fish and lungfish. Jawless fish like petromyzon, lamprey. Lungfish, they were the fish while the aquatic environment was too much crowded with fishes. So few fishes, they wanted to come out of the aquatic environment for a certain time. They used to roam nearby the muddy areas, and then again they used to go back into the water, because now in compare to other fishes, they got enhanced time to breathe into air, because they had extra breathing apparatus, lung like apparatus. So that's why we call them lungfish, also can be called as lobed fin fishes. Okay, they were appeared 350 million years ago. Similarly, 320 million years ago, there was existence of first arrival of seaweeds and few plants, and we will get glad to know that it's not the animals which were inhabitant to terrestrial zone for the first time. It was plants which invaded the terrestrial zone or land for the first time. Okay. Now again we are coming to the mainstream of evolution. So from those jawless fish or lungfishes, which we call lobe fin fishes, as because their wings, their pectoral wings somehow got modified into lobe, and that helped them to thrive around the nearby mud or nearby river bank or water bodies, okay, into terrestrial zones. That's why we call them lobed fins animals, fishes. Okay, till till date they are not present, they are already extinct. So we believe that from them there was modification and there was formation of amphibian. Okay, and the amphibian ancestor, we call them ichthyostega. Amphibians are those animals for the first time, one stage of life it was used to be aquatic exclusively, and another stage of life they used to live into the terrestrial zone. That's why we call them amphibia, first animal who tried to adapt on land. Okay, now from the amphibia we got to see that evolution of reptiles, the first successful terrestrial animals, they evolved 280 million years ago. And when we are talking about reptiles, we must talk about ichthyosaurs, which arrived somehow 200 million years ago. Ichthyosaurs, they were aquatic, dinosaurs, they were aquatic reptiles. Okay, and we must talk about T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus, the giant ones, the like very dangerous dinosaurs, tyrannosaurs. Okay, tyranno means danger, and they had dagger like teeth. That's why we call them tyrannosaurs. But in course of time the dinosaurs, they got extinct just 65 million years ago. The reason is still unknown. Some theory says that it is due to the asteroid attack. It asteroid when the asteroid attacked the now, behind the theory of extinction on dinosaurs, there are multiple theories, many theories are there. Few says that it is due to the asteroid attack, few says that it is due to the sudden environment change, and these dinosaurs, they were basically enormously large reptiles. Those are obviously poikilothermic or cold-blooded animals. Suddenly there was ice age and they couldn't cope up with the cold environment and they died. Okay, and from few of those reptiles, there was evolution of birds. Those who tried to fly and jump into the air, gradually they had given rise to birds through one animal like Archaeopteryx. So birds are the descendants of reptiles. Similarly, from few of the reptiles, mammals were evolved in the form of shrews. Like the initial mammals were like smaller, like shrews, and they evolved 185 million years ago. So again, for birds and mammals, their ancestors are reptiles, right? Okay. So in a diagram, in diagrammatic format, I have tried to explain this. So this is the eubionts, or the self-replicating metabolic capsules, or the proto-cells. We call them microspheres or protocells. From them there was existence of first cell, and after that there was existence of first photoautotropic oxygenic unicellular prokaryotes. We call them cyanobacteria, and gradually they keep on evolving from cyanobacteria to eubacteria, and there is formation of first animal from few of the protozoans got evolved into animal in the form of sponges 500 million years ago. 500 million years ago, first invertebrate, then from porifera to nidaria, then from nidaria to platyhelminths, aschelminths, annelida, arthropoda, mollusca, and so on. Evolution was happening. Okay, 350 million years ago, there was arrival of jawless fish, as well as there was arrival of lobed fin fish. This is an example of coelacanth. Okay, today it's extinct, but in 1938 in South Africa, a few fishermen, they got one of the like alive example of coelacanth, but today it's extinct. Okay, due to the special pattern of their fins, we call them lobed fin. That lobed fin helped them to thrive into the terrestrial zone for a certain period of time, and again they used to get back into the water. Okay, to form the lobed fin, there will be arrival of amphibians, and similarly 320 million years ago we had observed seaweed, we had observed moss and ferns, and it was plants, the moss and ferns like plant which had invaded into the land zone. Okay, now this was the ancestral amphibia. We call it ichthyostega. From amphibia there is formation of reptiles. The early reptile which are extinct nowadays, they evolved into two variant, Sauropsida and Synapsida. So you can remember it in this way. Early reptile, it had two offsprings, one Saurabh, one Syna. One Saurabh, one Syna. One boy, one girl, Syna. So see, girls are always they try to show that they are more advanced in compared to boys, right? So from Synapsida, who evolved for Synapsida, there was evolution of Pelycosaur. That is also extinct today. From Pelycosaur, there was formation of Therapsid. That is also extinct today. And from Therapsid, there was evolution of first mammal. Okay, so you can remember with this particular trick, Syna went for PTM. Synapsida gave rise Pelycosaur, P, T, Therapsid, and then M for mammal. Now, what about our friend Sauropsid? Sauropsid. Few descendants of sauropsids, they are thecodonts, and this thecodont eventually will give rise dinosaur. This thecodont will eventually give rise crocodile, and this thecodont eventually will give rise the early birds from Archaeopteryx. Okay. Few descendants of sauropsid will give rise turtle, snakes, sphenodon, and lizard. So few descendants of sauropsids, they will give rise to turtles, sphenodon or tuatara, you will get into New Zealand, snakes and lizards. Okay. About 200 million years ago, we got some clue that there was existence of reptiles or aquatic reptiles. We call them ichthyosaurs. See, this is the ichthyosaur. There was existence of like frightening dinosaur called Tyrannosaurus or T-Rex, and these dinosaurs, they suddenly got extincted 65 million years ago. And when you talk about this T-Rex, you need to remember they have dagger-like teeth. They have dagger-like teeth. Okay. Now, what after that? Upon formation of mammal, after Ice Age, there was rise of mammal, and before that, after the Mesozoic era, it was the era of reptiles, right? But after that Mesozoic era, suddenly Ice Age appeared, and most of the large reptiles, they will die, and from here a new saga will start, and that is rise of mammals. And due to their sharp intelligence and sensing capabilities, they will start spreading throughout the earth, and the who is the king? Mammals are the king now. Okay. Now, one example of mammalian evolution is also described in NCERT. During the time of continental drift, the animals of South America and North America, they collided with each other. Okay. The landmass of South America collided with landmass of North America. South American mammals, they were kind of weaker, whereas North American mammals like horse, rhinos, okay, bears, gorillas, they were kind of stronger. So they dominated over the weak animals of Southern America, and gradually with time, North American mammals overridden, means dominated over the North American mammals, overridden over the South American mammals, right? So there is, if you visit America, you can observe more North American mammals and very less population of Southern American mammals. Okay, and due to competition, few of the mammals, they went down into the aquatic zone, like whale, dolphins, sea cow, sea lions, and seals. So all these animals, they are aquatic mammals, but there was competition with other terrestrial animals, and they lost the competition. So nature had driven them towards the aquatic zone. So they developed some new structures like flippers and paddles, and they become they remain into the aquatic zone, they become aquatic mammals, right? They are not fishes. So now we will learn evolution of man with a trick, and the trick is Dr. Sneha. Okay, so let's learn the chronology. So it's like that. First we will start with our ancestors called Dryopithecus and Ramapithecus. They existed 15 million years ago. After that, there is evolution of man-like primate 3 to 4 million years ago. Probably they used to be Australopithecines or Australopithecus, and even we got their existence as fossil 2 million years back, right? And from this particular ancestor, that is Australopithecines, we will be calling them ape man. So after Australopithecines, we got evidences of Homo habilis. They existed or they lived on earth 2 to 1.5 million years ago with the cranial capacity of 650 to 800 cc, and they are the first human like being or hominid. Probably they were fruit eater or vegetarians. After Homo habilis, we got proofs of existence of Homo erectus. They used to roam on earth 1.5 million years ago with cranial capacity of 900 cc, and probably they were our ancestors. For the first time they ate meat and learned how to burn the fire, right? After Homo erectus, we have Neanderthals. We got their existence or proofs of their existence 1 lakh to 40,000 years ago with a large cranial capacity almost like us, 1400 cc, and they used to use hides to protect their body. They buried their dead ones, and probably they had religious rituals. Okay, after Neanderthals, this is us, Homo sapiens sapiens or modern man, and probably we stepped in 75,000 to 10,000 years ago somewhere, and we have a cranial capacity of 1350 cc. Okay, so now let's talk about the trick. It's Dr. Sneha. So Dr. Dryopithecus, Ramapithecus. Now Sneha, S, Homo sapiens, N, Neanderthal. So downside up. E, Homo erectus. H, Homo habilis. A, Australopithecines. Dr. Dryopithecus, Ramapithecus, and Sneha from down to up. Homo sapiens, Neanderthal, erectus, habilis, and Australopithecines. Okay, now we'll talk about Ramapithecus and Dryopithecus. They had hairy bodies. They walked like gorillas and chimpanzees. Ramapithecus, they were more like man, Lord Rama, human being, right? So Ramapithecus, they were more like man. They used to live near to Shivalik hills, so also you can call them Shivapithecus. Dryopithecus, they were more like ape. Okay, after that, in Ethiopia and Tanzania, we got fossils of man-like primates. They were not taller than 4 feet. They walked upright because they had lumbar curve. This is the lumbar region, and even we have proof of their existence even 2 million years ago in East African grasslands. Basically, I am talking about Australopithecines or Australopithecus. So after Australopithecus, here we have Homo habilis. Also, they are called as able man or handyman. Why so? Because they used to know the stone tool, the process of making tools from stone. That's why they got the name able man or handyman. They're the first human-like being or hominid, right? They had very low cranial capacity of 650 to 800 cc. They were vegetarians, so they did not eat meat. After Homo habilis, we have evidences of Homo erectus. We call them Java men or Peking men. Probably they lived on Earth 1.5 million years ago. They had a cranial capacity of 900 cc, and they got erect posture. They exhibited successful bipedalism like us, because they had both the curvatures, cervical curve to look frontwards and lumbar curve to walk upright. Okay, they were the men who learned how to burn fire, and by using fire they used to roast, or they used to burn meat. So they were first meat eaters. Okay, now this Australopithecus, Homo habilis or Homo erectus, we call them ape man. Before them they were pre-ape man, and after them from Neanderthals, that is Homo sapiens neanderthalensis. Okay, from here we will be talking about true man. You see, the scientific name is Homo sapiens neanderthalensis. So they had quite large cranial capacity of 1400 cc. They used to graze in East and Central Asia. Their existence were 1 lakh to 40,000 years ago. They used hide to protect their bodies. Hide means the skin of dead animals or even the bark of trees. They buried their dead bodies. They used to practice a religious culture, right? Okay, now how they disappeared or where they disappeared, there are many theories. It said that there was a clash or war between modern man and Neanderthals, and as because modern men, they were more stronger, they had more population, they wiped out Neanderthals. Okay, so after Neanderthals we got evidence of Homo sapiens fossilis. We also call them Cro-Magnon. They used to dwell in caves, also we call them cavemen, and after them there was evolution of modern man or Homo sapiens. Sapiens prehistoric cave art was exhibited by us 18,000 years ago, and there are certain examples you can observe till today in Wembetka rock or Risen rock. Probably we learned agriculture, okay, by observing the nature, the river banks 10,000 years ago. The first Homo sapiens or modern men, they appeared on earth into the African region, and later they got diversified throughout the different parts of world, right? Okay, so this diagram is also taken from NCERT. So this shows a common ancestry of chimpanzee and man. So how it can be proved that we had a common ancestor? By observing the skull of baby chimpanzee and adult human. Okay, skull of baby chimpanzees are more like to the there will be similarities between the skull of baby chimpanzee and skull of adult human, though the skull of adult chimpanzee, they are quite different. Their mouth, their jawline become enlarged, and their mouth is kind of prognathous kind. Our mouth is orthognathous kind of mouth. So just you have to remember there are similarities between the skull of baby chimpanzee and adult human being. There is no similarities
there is no similarity in between the skull of adult chimpanzee and adult man. Okay. So still we are evolving day by day. So let's solve one question. Okay. So select the true statement. The statements, let's read the statements. Said that Ramapithecus and Dryopithecus were existing about 50 million years ago. No, they used to exist 15 million years ago. Ramapithecus was more man-like, yes, while Dryopithecus was more ape-like. This is true statement. Statement 3, Ramapithecus was more ape-like. No, this is a false statement. So we got our answer. Next, another assertion and reason. The assertion said that the fitness is the ability of an individual to get adapt and selected by nature. Obviously that is true. The reason said that according to Darwin, physical fitness has no use in struggle for existence and therefore not inherited. Okay. Reason is also true, but the reason is not justification or justifying that how fitness is the ability or why fitness is the ability of an individual to get adapt and select the nature. That's why the answer will be if both the assertion and reason are true, but reason is not the correct explanation of assertion. Okay. So with this, I am ending this chapter of evolution. So I am evolving day by day. You also try to evolve every day and redefine yourself with a better manner. So let's say bye bye and Jai Hind.